Day 2, Solving Inequalities. You will be able to solve inequalities in one variable with strategies involving inverse operation and integers. Your homework is on page 573, lesson 4-5, numbers 1 through 6. You must write the problem, show the work, and graph. We will be having a graphing inequalities quiz on a number line tomorrow, so be ready for that. All right, so let's check your homework, which you did last night for homework. Okay, so here's one where we had yesterday, and we talked about you want to keep the variable on first or on the left side. So then we rewrite it as n is greater than or equal to -3. Let me get my red pen then up here. That one will be better. So n is greater than or equal to -3. So we want to have a closed circle, okay, and it is greater than. All right. We have k is less than or equal to -5. So again, we want to have a closed circle, and it is less than or equal to -5. So it should be going in this direction. Here's another one where we have the number first, the variable second. So rewrite it. So k is less than or equal to -4. That makes it much easier to graph. So less than or equal to -4. So again, we have that closed circle. We want our arrow pointing in the direction of our inequality sign. N is less than or equal to -4. So again, that's pretty much the same one we just did. Less than or equal to -4. Make sure you have a closed circle. It's hard to draw this with my mouse. And then here again, we've got -1 is greater than x. Okay, so we want to put x is less than -1. And here we don't have the equal to, so we're going to have an open circle. Okay, and our inequality sign showing, going in the direction of the inequality. All right, the next section, here you needed to write what was being graphed. So I'm just going to use x. Of course, any variable would work. It has an open circle, so it's greater than 3. Here we have a closed circle, so x is greater than or equal to -3. Here we have another closed circle, so x is greater than or equal to 3. Here we have an open circle, so we know that x is less than -3, anything less than -3. Here we have a closed circle, so x is less than or equal to 6. And finally, we see that x is greater than 0. There was the tardy bell. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We're going to do a little bit of vocabulary review, and then you're going to have some inequalities practice activity at Google Classroom, and it will contain the correct solution and graph for each of the 10 problems. So yesterday we already glued this into your notebook under your Freer model for inequalities. And we want to look at some of the key words that you'll be seeing in here. Yes, we know less than, greater than, less than, or equal to. But we also use some terms like is at most, is at least. So let's look at this first inequality here. Less than 70 students attended the class dance. So now think about how you would show that using an inequality. So hopefully you could pick whatever dance. So less than 70 students. At the store, the camera cost at least as much as the mail order price of $2.29. So it's going to cost at least that much, but it can cost more than $2.29. So we would write it as the camera, or the cost, is greater than or equal to $2.29. It can cost $2.29, but it could also be greater than that as well. All right, so let's review our vocabulary. You have all of these in your Freer models. You want to review these because these are going to be on the vocabulary quiz that we will be having this week as well. All right, so real quick, describe each one of the followings, and just to determine, to make sure that you know the difference between what is an equation, an inequality, and an expression. Of course, the equal signs, we know that they are our equations. We know that the inequality signs are our inequalities. And we know that expressions just contain an operation without an equal sign. So that was easy enough. All right, moving on. Let's see. True or false? Mary buys 7 apples. So Mary buys greater than or equal to 5 apples. Is that true? Yeah, because she buys 7. So yes, she can do that. All right, let's look at our next one. Sam eats 3 donuts. Okay, so it could equal 3, and Sam eats 3. So that is a true statement. He could eat 3, or he could eat less than 3. John drives at least 40 miles to work. So it's going to equal 40, and then it would actually be greater than. So that statement is false. All right, so moving on. Now, I would like for you in your notebook to copy these down, and this you're going to put on page 24. Okay, so you can draw you a grid. I'd like for you to solve, check, and graph these 2 equations. All right, so now let's check. Okay, so you have 4 times 5, so you want to do the inverse of that. So we want to divide by 4, divide by 4, and now we see that y is less than or equal to 2. So now my suggestion is you go ahead and graph first, and we're showing that it is less than or equal to 2. So we need a closed circle. I hope you did that. And then, of course, we want our arrow pointing in the same direction of our inequality. Okay, then we go over to this one. Here again, 5a means we're multiplying 5 times a. So we're going to do the inverse. We're going to divide by 5. And now these cancel out. A is greater than negative 2. So then we go up to graph. Here we have a is greater than negative 2. Oops, I'm forgetting to, I need to draw my, so let's put negative 2, negative 1, and negative 3. Okay, we have a open circle, and we have our arrow going in the same direction. Now, in order to check these, you simply go back to your original problem. So here we have 4, and we're going to multiply 4 times anything that is less than or equal to 2. So why not, let's take 0. Okay, less than or equal to 8. And of course 4 times 0 is 0, and 0 is less than or equal to 8. Okay, on to our next one. We plug and chug. So 5, a is anything that is greater than negative 2. So again, let's take 0. That would be easy. Is, whoops, greater than negative 10. And 5 times 0 is 0. And 0 is greater than negative 10. So we were correct. Okay, now, add these to your notebook. A number increased by 7 is less than or equal to 23. And also the quotient of W and 3 is greater than 5. Work these 2 in your notebook, then go to the next slide for check. Okay, so a number increased by 7 is less than or equal to 23. So we have a number increased by 7 is less than or equal to 23. Okay, so if we're adding 7, we want to get rid of that constant. So we want to subtract 7, and now we see that n is less than or equal to 16. So now we go to our graph, 15, 16, 17. We know that we are less than or equal to, so that's our closed circle, and our arrow pointing in this direction. Now, if we want to do our check, okay, so let's get a different color here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to say let's pick something that's less than 16. So let's go with 15. So if I put 15 plus 7, is it going to be less than or equal to 23? Well, of course, because this is 22, and 22 is less than or equal to 23. Moving to your next one, the quotient of W and 3. So the quotient of W and 3 is greater than negative 5. Okay, we need to do the inverse here. So the inverse of dividing is going to be to multiply. So multiply, this cancels out. W is greater than negative 15. Okay, so now I'm going to have a negative 15. Before that would be my negative 14, and after that would be my negative 16. Okay, we need what kind of circle? You got it. We need the open circle, and W is greater than, and our arrow, we need to get the arrow that points the same direction as our inequality sign. So now I want you to go to classroom.google. I want you to open up the activity Inequalities Practice, which you will see for today's assignment. You need to follow the directions carefully. Make sure you put your name, and then once you're done, you need to turn it in. Remember, you don't share it. You will turn it in to me. If you do have any trouble, then tomorrow when I get back, we will certainly get it turned in. And then once you're done with that, then you can go ahead and get started on your homework, and your IXL assignments for this week are also at Google Classroom. I missed you. I hope you're doing a great job learning lots about inequalities, and have a wonderful rest of the day.